So the whole Internet of Things is IoT technology. Today I'm going to talk to you about visibility and control as it relates to your restaurants, with food safety through temperature monitoring, early equipment diagnosis, all paid for through energy management. A little bit about my background in restaurant industries where I grew up. As a child, we had my godparents had an Italian restaurant, 67 years, called the Bella Napoli. And growing up there, I'll just never forget, her name was Maria Sala. Maria Sala always had this stick, and the stick had this little spoon, a wooden spoon that she'd stir things, and it was important that everything we did was exactly as she wanted it to be, just to make sure that the taste and the quality was exactly as it was to be for all of her family, and she considered, by the way, everybody who walked in as part of our family. But the funniest thing is, I remember as a child growing up, is that she had this stick, and she'd smack it, and she'd hit it. And she'd do that about every 2 or 3 hours, and that was our reminder, because this was stainless steel, right? But it was our reminder to make sure that we're checking temperatures and that we're doing what we're supposed to do the way that she wanted us to do it, to make sure that it came out perfectly. That we were doing the right thing with respect to quality, that we're doing exactly the right thing as it relates to storing the food, taking temperatures, and doing all those things. So with the advent of technology and IoT that we've heard about today, the visibility has never been greater. In fact, what I would say is that now we have the opportunity to have almost an X-ray, if you will, on the restaurant itself. In fact, it's gotten so prolific that this X-ray is more like an MRI. You know, imagine, if you will, and I was thinking about Mike Rayburn earlier, and he was talking about that what-if component. And I couldn't help but thinking about that as I was talking to you guys today, about this what if you had this visibility, this X-ray of your entire system, of knowing exactly how your equipment's running, knowing exactly when the temperature is at the right temperature, but more importantly, if it's not. And then having this IoT technology and availability to be able to be notified on something as simple as your smartphone, to be text, just to say that it's not where it is or where it needs to be. And what about if you had that same opportunity from a visibility standpoint to know in your walk-in freezers if it's in a constant defrost? It sounds sort of crazy. We're not thinking about that. I can promise you, I never even heard those terms in the restaurant, and we don't, because unless someone's, not complaining in the restaurant, in the dining room, or unless an employee's not showing up, we're not thinking about those things. We're in the business of driving the ultimate experience for our customers. But that's the power of the visibility that we have today, is that we can see when something's not running right. This notion of this walk-in freezer where we store our critical foods, and having the ability and the understanding to know when things are working properly and when they're not. If something's in a constant defrost, you're burning a ton of energy. And that's very, very expensive. And you're over-burning and cooling your food, which means you're degrading the quality, that very experience that means so much to all of us in the restaurant business. And so now, with the advent of technology, you can now drive that and be notified way before something more severe happens, way before you have to throw away this valuable product. Now, going a step further, what if you had the ability to not only see what was happening, but actually make a change? And that's where it gets really, really cool. Because now, with this technology, knowing exactly what those temperatures are, not just in the walk-ins, but in the reach-ins, you're able to detect those changes and then make real progress, make real changes. And those changes can happen anywhere from this notion of, my lights are on in the middle of the day. How many of you, let me ask you this curiosity, how many of you drove into your restaurants, those of you who have parking lot lighting, and it's the middle of the day, but for some crazy reason, the lights are on? Does that ever happen? Raise your hand, just so I can see. We hear it all the time. Absolutely. We have several brands, and I can tell you that everyone say the same thing. Darn it, those lights are on. It's the middle of the day. That's so expensive. And I'm trying to stay away from these peak demands. And is energy getting less expensive, by the way, or more expensive? It's probably going the other way, right? And so now with the ability to have the power of control, you can now get notified on your phone and literally turn that off. Turn that off from your phone as opposed to waiting and wondering what's going to happen next. And that's truly a difference. The same thing with these defrost cycles. Let me go a step further. What about this notion of temperatures? This requirement that we have to do to keep our customers safe. This form that we have to fill out and taking those temperatures and being able to put your initials, put the time, and say that yes, in fact, the temperature is correct every 4 hours, whatever the requirements are for the health department. But now with the advent of the Internet of Things, we now have the technology, these capabilities like this top right-hand photo that you see there, of these types of probes that you literally can probe your foods, your proteins, hot, cold, you name it, and it'll actually read the data, provide it as a card on the health department to show that it's safe, but then instead of having your team member fill it out, it automatically populates to the form that's been designed specifically for your restaurant. So it no longer has to be done manually, because none of us ever forget, right? Every employee does it every time. That's never an issue, right? We know better than that. It just happens. Like I said, I grew up in the business, and it just happens. This is the power of IoT and the ability to drive how to not only be safer, but how to ensure that we're delivering the right experience to our customers. As it relates to the rest of this notion of control, is that you have the ability to be alarmed and alert just like that on your smartphone and know exactly what the temperatures are, and even more importantly, when they're not the right temperature, and make necessary adjustments. And that is critical. When you talk about this notion of control, how about the opportunity to say that I have all of these locations, let's assume I have 25 locations, or 50 locations, or 250 or 300 locations, and I now am notified when those temperatures aren't being taken. And I can be alerted just simply on my screen or on my phone and say, my gosh, I've got 12 restaurants that didn't register necessarily at that moment. And now I have the ability to have it automatically communicated, to be texted, to be emailed, that in fact, I have several restaurants that need to be taken. It really advances the opportunity. It literally will change the way that we're doing business. So when you think about this whole notion of how we're advancing with the IoT of things and the data that's it's recording, all of this stuff is recording now. So you have a database of years now. You can store as much as 3 years of data, as much as you want, of all this data. So the store comparisons from one location to another based on the volume, the ability to have that data based on inventory, based on human behavior. When someone goes and tries to change that thermostat, and we know, again, nobody ever changes the thermostat, right? Because nobody ever gets warm in the kitchen, right? Never happens. They're perfect. Well, we know that's not true, and we know that drives the temperature. But if you had the ability to know two things. One, if you could control that so that it only had the ability to go 1 or 2 or 3 degrees, and then be automatically set back to its permanent set point, how much money would that save? And then more importantly, what if it notified you that that same person, ironically, at that same location, from a human behavior standpoint, is making that change? So now you're understanding and studying human behavior, you're studying food safety, and now with this reduction in energy, you're saving money in the process. So with that, you have the opportunity to not only drive that profitability of your company. We all know there's external influences, whether it's insurance or labor requirements now with increased minimum wage requirements. It's more important now than ever that we do what we can to save money. And if this allows you to do this, if this Internet of Things allows you to save that kind of money, and allows you to have more locations, provide better quality for our employees because we have that excess cash flow on an annualized basis, what a difference we can make. So much bigger than just any one episode, but the notion of having the ability to literally change the quality of lives for the communities that we serve and where our restaurants are, it's pretty powerful stuff. Again, my name is David Andow, and thank you so much for your time today.